Welcome to today's Explainer. Have you ever walked through a rapidly developing city? Navigated around all that temporary fencing of a huge commercial construction site and just wondered exactly how much planning and precision goes into transforming that empty lot into a fully functional piece of the urban landscape? Well, today we're taking a metaphorical site tour of building engineering to unpack exactly who they are and how they operate. We're going to break down the mechanics behind their massive commercial construction projects right across Victoria. Because instead of just looking at the bricks and mortar, we really want to understand the actual blueprint and the operational framework of a premier construction firm. We're going to see how their specific methodologies literally impact the environments we all live and work in every single day.
Okay, let's dive into this. Before a single shovel even hits the dirt, an effective construction project requires an incredibly coordinated team. And building engineering has already secured the 2026 to 2027 Great Place to Work certification for Australia. Now, what makes this so interesting from an operational standpoint is that it acts as a very real metric for future-facing strategy. Think about it, securing a certification literally years in advance suggests a highly structured, incredibly supportive internal culture. In an industry that is notoriously known for high turnover and intense pressure, prioritizing team stability like this establishes that their foundational strength isn't just made of concrete and steel. Honestly, retaining experienced people is often the unseen mechanism that keeps these complex, multi-year construction projects running on time and on budget.
So who exactly are they and where are they operating from? Building Engineering is a premier commercial construction firm with their roots planted firmly at 125 Hark Street, West Melbourne. And there is a distinct, massive logistical advantage to this. Instead of operating as some giant multinational corporation managing things from a distant offshore office, being based right in West Melbourne puts their leadership and project managers right at the beating heart of the community they are actively shaping. They are local, and they are present. This kind of proximity allows for much faster decision-making on local sites, way easier coordination with regional subcontractors, and just a more immediate, grounded understanding of the Victorian landscape and local compliance requirements.
Now that we understand their foundation, let's examine their operational framework. The core commercial capabilities they maintain are highly comprehensive. They essentially cover the entire life cycle of a building. They handle primary construction, highly complex refurbishments, super detailed internal fit-outs, essential cladding, and specialist works. And actually, that last category, specialist works, is particularly relevant to the average pedestrian because it includes streetscapes. They aren't just focused on putting up four walls and a roof. They have the internal infrastructure to manage the whole shebang, from pouring the deep foundation to laying the very paving stones you walk on right outside the front doors.
And this brilliantly illustrates how all those core services connect. You see a clear, linear progression from the ground straight out to the street. Step 1 involves the core construction and cladding, basically establishing the structural bones and the protective exterior skin of the building. Then Step 2 moves indoors for the interior refurbishment and fit-out, making the inside actually functional and ready for human use. Finally, Step 3 brings it all back outside, with specialist streetscape works, beautifully integrating that new structure into the surrounding public space. Treating this entire journey as one continuous, holistic process under a single firm is significantly more efficient than juggling a bunch of disjointed contractors. It hugely reduces the chance of delays and miscommunication between the different phases of development.
To really understand how this framework operates in the real world, just consider the stark contrast between two very different types of projects they handle. On one hand, you have the Penley and Essendon Grammar School Junior Boys Campus Stage 1. That demands a highly structured, future-focused educational framework. On the other hand, you have Harkness Memorial Park Stage 1, which serves as a solemn, community-centric public memorial space. Managing these two vastly different builds requires a major pivot in project management, tone, logistics, and execution. It's a perfect demonstration of their capacity to adapt standard construction methodologies to serve radically different community needs without losing an ounce of operational efficiency.
Let's zoom in and examine the first major stop on our site tour, the Penley and Essendon Grammar School project. Educational construction is a highly specialized sector. You aren't just erecting standard, run-of-the-mill office rooms. You are building the exact environment where young minds are going to focus and develop. Delivering Stage 1 of the Junior Boys Campus involves setting the crucial physical foundation for the school's future operations. And that requires strict adherence to modern safety regulations, incredibly precise acoustic standards to minimize classroom distractions, and just a deep, fundamental understanding of how physical spaces can either hinder or completely facilitate effective learning.
And the work at Penley and Essendon is actually part of a much broader trend in their portfolio. A recent update from the company literally reads, St. Aloysius College Senior Years Campus taking shape. We can treat this as a really solid data point, proving their continued rapid expansion into the educational sector across multiple campuses.
By systematically completing these complex academic builds, they're firmly establishing themselves as a reliable, go-to contractor for academic institutions in Victoria. They are consistently meeting the high demands of modern curricula by delivering the specialized, sophisticated facilities that schools absolutely require to stay competitive and effective. But now, shifting our focus away from the structured environment of schools, we arrive at our next site tour stop, Harkness Memorial Park, Stage 1. This project provides a totally different kind of civic value. Memorial parks are highly sensitive, enduring spaces meant for quiet reflection, public gathering, and the preservation of heritage. They require a completely different touch from a construction crew than a standard commercial office block. The landscaping, the material choices, the spatial flow, it all must prioritize a sense of permanence and deep respect. Managing a project like this really highlights a unique capacity to handle culturally and socially significant public infrastructure with the exact appropriate scale and care.
Now, what's really interesting about this is an ongoing update direct from the site that notes they are, quote, building momentum at Harkness Memorial Park. This indicates that the park isn't just some conceptual design sitting on a desk somewhere. It is an active, ongoing, breathing construction zone. That phrase, building momentum, it translates to the sheer physical and logistical push happening on the ground right now. It involves coordinating heavy earth-moving equipment, sourcing very specific materials, and managing specialized labor to bring this vital public space to life, ensuring the community is soon going to have access to a beautifully completed, functional memorial ground.
318. Keep that number in mind for a second. It represents 318 Little Collins Street, which is another major feature project in their portfolio. And this perfectly demonstrates that while they are completely capable of building sprawling schools and expansive parklands in wide-open areas, they also operate right in the dense, bustling, chaotic heart of the Melbourne CBD. Navigating a major build in the middle of Little Collins Street requires a completely different kind of logistical mastery. Suddenly, you're dealing with severe traffic constraints, incredibly strict noise ordinances, impossibly tight spaces for crane operations, and just the constant, relentless flow of city pedestrians right outside the hoarding. It's a huge challenge.
So we've looked at their physical capabilities across a whole range of challenging environments, from the super tight constraints of the CBD to specialized local schools. But that brings us to a broader, arguably much more important question. What happens beyond the build? When the cranes are finally packed up, the scaffolding is dismantled, and the keys are handed over to the client, what is the lasting legacy of a construction company? It's a question that really helps separate the standard contractors, the ones who simply execute a blueprint, from the organizations that act as deeply embedded community partners.
So, the crucial point is this. Building engineering maintains an active, dedicated focus on realizing social responsibility. Their stated mission transcends simply erecting structures. They understand that large-scale construction inherently disrupts neighborhoods, bringing noise, traffic, and a lot of change. To balance that out, they take on the responsibility of ensuring their presence leaves a net positive impact. And for the average person living nearby, this matters. A socially responsible contractor might prioritize hiring local tradespeople, minimizing environmental waste during a messy demolition, or ensuring site safety doesn't negatively impact the surrounding local businesses. It's about building up the community economically and ethically, not just architecturally.
A recent company update highlights this exact approach in action, detailing a transition, quote, beyond the build, from site to classroom, inspiring future pathways. They are literally taking the practical expertise from their active construction sites and bringing it directly into classrooms. Discussing career pathways with students addresses a very real, pressing issue: the ongoing labor shortages in the construction and trades industries. By showing young people the potential of a career in this field, they are actively investing in the very youth whose schools they might currently be constructing. It's such a practical, beautifully mutually beneficial form of community engagement. And foundational to absolutely all of this work is a stated, profound respect for the physical environment they build upon. They formally state, "We acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land. We pay our respects to their elders past and present." Building engineering operates with a deep awareness of the history beneath their sites, as well as the future communities those sites are going to serve. So the next time you navigate past the temporary fencing of a commercial build, ask yourself, who is actually managing the site, and what kind of broader legacy are they constructing for your cities tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you next time.